Welcome to the Inner Athlete Podcast, where we discuss all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.
Yeah, so where are you now with the injuries? Are you back up to running? What's going on there?
Physically, I'm 100% straight line sprinting, change of direction. As we spoke about before, a good measurement for me was doing the Copenhagen plank and progressing through that without pain. Discomfort is fine because it's still...
It's a difficult exercise.
Yeah, difficult exercise and having enough difficulty to want to go back and get better at it again. With regards to change of direction and everything like that, the biggest thing for me is just the competence in doing physical activity will build the confidence to go and exercise that on a rugby league field. So, yeah, just working through that. And, yeah, I think for me it's putting in the time and effort to build the evidence that I can do that again.
Yeah. Then you've obviously mentioned a few lessons along the way. One was obviously having that sense of gratitude, but then having time away from the sport gave you a lot more perspective. Where do you see yourself moving forward? So obviously you mentioned that you're gearing up for a big off season. You had a new club, then you've got to get your way back into the squad essentially. So, what's the plan moving forward from here? So we're in October now. You've got early preseason will start soon with the club. Then you'll go have time off. Then you'll have your I guess proper preseason. Well, what's the plan for you moving forward?
Right now, my focus is fixated on getting my body right and performing well in these upcoming games that I have. Also, without losing sight that when I do get back, I've got such a great opportunity to prove myself against quite a high caliber team and some players in that team that I've looked from afar and that I look up to, and to rub shoulders with them, and just a prospect of that opportunity to test myself and know that nothing's guaranteed, that ultimately if a lot of it's up to the way I apply myself and what I do at training, what I do outside of training to prepare for the next training session.
Yep.
It's really exciting
because you're off to Greece, or you're off again. You've got qualifiers for the next World Cup for Greece. So when do you go? Who are you playing? And I guess what's the plan in the next It's a couple of weeks, isn't it?
So we leave Wednesday the 18th. So next week we leave. The plan there will be arrive in Athens, get the team together, throw the ball around. When I say that, I mean actually formulate some plays and get the team cohesion up to a level where we can take that onto the rugby league field. And our competition over there we'll be versing the Ukraine and Norway. So we've got a game in Greece, in Athens against Ukraine. And then we fly over to Norway for just under a week to play the Norwegians in a game of rugby league. So
you wouldn't really hear that.
Yeah,
those two words.
It's on Channel 7. No, it's not.
It should be on KO, hopefully.
Yeah. So that's a competition that we have coming up, and these are qualifiers for the next World Cup.
Yep.
Which is still up in the air with regards to where it'll be, and the decision's been made on the reduction of teams going into the next Rugby League World Cup.
Okay, so how many teams was there? 16 teams?
Yeah, there were 16 teams in the last one, so 4 groups of 4. And then
do you reckon they'll do 12 teams and 3 per pool?
I don't know what the landscape will look like for the next World Cup. I just know that Greece have to put their best foot forward in order to qualify. So every team in the last World Cup that made the finals, so the top 2 teams out of each pool have already made it. So there's eight spots already taken. So to my understanding, that there's essentially 1 spot up for grabs for Greece, and then because we're in the European Confederation, and then there's another one which will be the USA, Canada, Jamaica, and those teams.
Yeah, like North America. Yeah.
So we have to compete with teams like France and Wales and Ireland and stuff. So
Scotland. Yep.
So this upcoming trip it's important for us because we have to win these games and put our best foot forward to be able to compete with those, higher level nations. So, and I don't think it scares us that, teams like France and Wales are, they're a bit more along the development in terms of rugby league in their nation, but I don't think that scares us because we've got the evidence to back that we can play rugby league, and so it's just an exciting prospect to come up against those teams hopefully in the future to make us stand for the next Rugby League World Cup.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Norway is obviously not known for rugby league. Do you know much about these teams?
I know that my teammates who have played in the Greek team have played these teams before, and I'll obviously ask how they were and what it was like to play them, but I can't take that expectation into the games that I'm going to play against them in a couple of weeks, because our teams change, their teams have changed, whether for the better or for the worse. I'll find out after the game. But I know that they're probably, I can't really speak on where they are in terms of their development in rugby league, but they obviously know enough to be able to play the game and pass the ball backwards. So, it's done in tiers. So, for the we can only have a certain amount of. I label myself as a Greek Australian, and then they're the domestic Greeks over in Greece who play rugby league there, so we can only have a certain amount of Aussie Greeks on the field. I'm sure it's vice versa if they have any Ukraine or Norwegians over here playing rugby league, and they're fortunate enough to make their national team to make it an even playing field. So, yeah,
that's an interesting time for you. You've got a lot going on.
A lot going on, but the main thing that's I put a lot of importance on is rugby league isn't my life, and it's an important part of my life.
It doesn't make you or break you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've put a lot of energy and focus and structure my weeks to be able to recover and prepare for training sessions in games. But that might sound that it's consuming. However, I do place a lot of importance that I don't want it to overtake the other aspects of my life, so my relationships and enjoyments and hobbies and all that.
Yeah, you don't want the tail wagging the dog. You don't want the sport to kind of dictate your life. Yes, there are parameters around it, like there's set training sessions at certain times, which you can't be flexible about because everyone else is probably working full-time jobs as well. So you've just got to work with the reality of that situation. But then also because you play a contact sport with high amounts of collision, you also have to facilitate that recovery. But the fact that you actually enjoy the sport probably just means that this is something you want to be a part of your life, but it's not the only thing that's within your life as well. As you mentioned, you've got a partner, Elizabeth. You're a barista, making good coffee up in Brisbane, which is good. And then you've done other things in your life, but they don't necessarily dictate you. They're kind of like a stepping stone of where you want to go and where you want to be as a person as well. So you've kind of yes, I know rugby league is important to you, but if you walked away from the sport, you'd be like, I'm okay with walking away from the sport. So you can kind of, you're not defined by it. Because there's, and this is a really important lesson for, I think, any junior athlete as well, is you ever heard about like the NASA astronauts? About when they come back? Have you heard about that?
Not this specific one.
No, so I can't remember. I think it was like the 70s or 80s. So I think back then it was a really big deal to get into outer space, space station, onto the moon, right? The problem is you're building yourself up for such a big event. And like only, I don't know how many people have gone out of space or even on the moon or to the space station. It's probably like, I don't know, 100, 200 people. I'm just guessing. That is a big thing. And seeing Earth from a different perspective, rather than being in a plane or on the ground, you see Earth in its entirety. It's kind of like almost in disbelief. It's something to behold of. And when the astronauts came back, they actually suffered like, it's almost like when you go on a really cool holiday or something like that, and you're just like, oh, what's next in my life? You just built yourself up for that moment in time. And what they had seen is like they basically went through severe bouts of depression. I think some of them got on the bottle, started drinking, and we just saw like a negative decline, or not a negative decline. That's been up, is a decline in their quality of life and their mental health, because they built themselves up to such a moment in time. So it's always important to make sure that you're not dictated by what you do, that if you did walk away, that you'd feel content with what you've been to achieve. I know personally for me, if playing rugby league as well, growing up, I walked away from the sport when I was 20, 21. And I was kind of happy with that. I was happy to focus on my career, working in the strength and conditioning industry instead. And I've kind of enjoyed it for what it was. It managed to take me overseas as well. But at this point, I'm happy that I was able to walk away from it as well. And I was content with that. So I think it's always important to have something that you're really passionate about. I think it gives you a sense of purpose and drive. I think you have a sense of purpose when you play rugby league as well. It's something you enjoy. There's a camaraderie. There's a brotherhood associated with it that you really like being amongst, especially the way you talk about the Greek side, and you also feel like you're building something for the next generation or for the sport itself, especially when it comes to the rugby league in Greece. So you feel like there's a high purpose at play, and eventually you'll feel to a point that it's like, all right, I've probably served my purpose here, and I'm happy to move on. And then you've kind of done your bit, left your mark, and you can move on to the next thing in your life as well.
Yeah, definitely, and just if I can help lay the foundation for, as you mentioned, for other people and players to come through, then just having an influence but not expecting anything in return is will leave me with content, and that's irrespective of whichever team I'm playing for and with, and just leave it in a better place for when I got there.
Yeah, pretty much. Any final thoughts or words that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yes, in terms of articulating it, I might need some prompts. However, knowing that maybe not getting, just the idea of not getting caught up in the weeds of what decision is best for you. Just knowing that whatever decision you make, if it's, whether it's inside of your control, outside of your control, if that's, I guess just knowing to back yourself and not stressing out about, I should have done this, or if I do this, I can't do that. Just owning that decision, and you don't know unless you try. I don't know how to expand or articulate what I'm trying to say.
I get your point. We don't know what we don't know. So, I'm probably quoting someone else, probably someone famous throughout history with that one. So, of what we know is a very minuscule amount of what we know of what we don't know. So there's a lot of things we don't know about. I don't understand chemistry. I know a tiny bit of chemistry, but I don't understand like astrophysics or how like chemicals, like paint chemicals or something like that, right? It's a bit off track. I don't need to particularly know, but sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And understanding that there's a world of knowledge beyond us is probably a real critical thing to understand, because when we know what we don't, if we understand the concept or the idea of what we don't know, then we can start to ask questions. And asking questions of ourselves in terms of, all right, if I'm, say for yourself, Nick, so you're wanting to make the NRL, that's really your dream, or just to continue to play top level rugby in Queensland, right? That in itself is kind of what you want with that. In terms of what you may be missing, you may not know exactly what you're missing, and that's where you'll kind of call on for support from the S&C guy. You maybe just message me if you've got an idea that you don't know much about. But they even get another fresh set of eyes on you. They may be able to point out of what you don't know, and then they bring it into what you know of what you don't know. It might bring it to your attention. When we're able to do that, then we can start to kind of identify, all right, what are the things I can look into and spend a bit more time on and energy in order to help develop that specifically. So if it's something like watching film and to be able to read plays, and you might have a team, say you're playing Redcliffe or something like that, right? You might watch their film and you want to understand more of how they play. And then you might sit with someone else who's like a half. They will see it from a different perspective. So you won't even know how they see the game as well. And then when you sit with someone else, they're going to be able to point out things that you may completely miss as well. So you don't know what you don't know. Then they bring it to your attention of what you know of what you don't know. Then you do a bit more study into that, then you know what you know, if that makes sense. And then you can use that idea and that concept with literally everything of what you want to develop your skills in. And even for me personally, when it comes to business and the marketing and finances of running Inner Athlete, there's so much that I don't know about. I don't know what I don't know. And that's why it's worthwhile to get someone else, or even just putting things out, and then in return, they might be able to identify things that bring it to your attention so you can start to understand more of. Then you can make better decisions. And I think that's what a lot of athletes that kind of get themselves stuck in the weeds about is specifically that. They get stuck in the minutiae of what that issue may be. So say, for example, we work with Melbourne Swimming Club. Great club to work with. Athletes are great. Coaches are unreal. They've been very supportive. And everything we're trying to implement, right, is me trying to ask them questions of, all right, what are we doing? What are we trying to drive towards? What are we missing? What are the conversations that we're having? And I'm trying to bring attention and awareness to things that I may know about, that I've been able to help with a lot of our athletes here, that they may not be addressing, or they don't have the skill set or the tools to be able to do that. And how can I assist them in that as well? So it might be something as, being able to help them understand, implementing some testing, some basic testing to understand lower body power, upper body strength, and be able to track that over a period of time. Who's actually improving, right? Then are they seeing improvements in the pool without me trying to report directly to them about those testing results? Then we create more of a profile for that athlete specifically, because there's a lot of kids that have been really consistent with us that actually starting to see really good technical improvements. Then once the race season starts, then we'll start to see the times just start to drop. Then we continue to build upon that. Then there's more things we can implement over time as well. So I think getting stuck in the weeds, people get stuck too far away and not addressing what's actually really close to them as well. So say for someone who wants to lose weight, right? They're eating this, this, and this, and this. And I'll be like, okay, you're probably just missing an adequate amount of protein throughout the day. Maybe let's just start with that. Pretty simple, right? And once we start with that, they might feel like their cravings have dropped for sugar. Okay, cool. They're not snacking as much. Great. What does that mean? They're getting less refined carbohydrates. They're probably more likely to get nutrient-dense foods in. The energy levels start to improve and be a lot more consistent as well. Great. And we build upon that over time. I think a lot of people get stuck at the end goal, way over here, without focusing kind of like what's within arm's reach. And I think that's what you're kind of saying in a roundabout way. There's
an acronym, WIN.
No.
What's important now?
I usually low-hanging fruit, something like that.
WIN, like what's important now, and then you obviously have that end goal in mind, but you're not going to you're not going to get there if you don't do the small.
Yeah, and I think what it really comes down to is understanding that big goal, then breaking it down into more smaller goals and more like milestone-based goals. Then with those milestone-based goals, you have to break it down even further to what are you going to do on a daily basis, what are you going to do on a weekly basis. Then they're going to accumulate to where you're going to get in that month or 2 months or 3 months' time. So for you specifically, you've got the qualifiers coming up. So obviously you've broken your time down in terms of what you need to be doing specifically in order to get match ready, because you don't have, I guess, from the injury, you weren't able to play throughout the rest of the season in order to help you recover. So you've got a lot of catch up to do. You've got to get touch and feel of the ball, get it back into some level of contact. So when you do hit the paddock, you're not feeling like you're 4 or 5 steps behind. You're basically trying to close down what the goal is specifically. This milestone goal is to get back on the paddock, play against Ukraine in Greece. So then you're going to have to try and put interventions in place of, okay, I haven't been playing. You understand your situation. You've got to figure out a way how to get more touches in. You've got to figure out a way to get some contact in. Okay, it might not be practice because, the season's done. It might be, calling up one of your mates and be like, hey, can we spend, 30 minutes just doing some wrestling or tackle practice, or going down to like a BJJ gym where they might have wrestling or something like that, just to get that physical contact and confidence back up to where you need to be, at least closer than just doing gym work by yourself, than just doing running by yourself, which is 2 components of the whole picture, but you need to build your confidence back up because it was the tackling that that gave you the grief, gave you the issue, right? So you got to get back and build your confidence back up from the thing that gave you the issue as well. So you need to address that specifically, so you know how to get yourself into better positions moving forward, and then be able to implement that into the actual game. It might take a little bit of a teething period once you're playing as well, but you'll be able to kind of like overcome that a lot faster rather than just having in the gym, on the field, doing your own running, maybe with the ball, then getting back into actually playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just entrenched into what you're saying, and I agree with it all. And I was just recounting back on, I guess my rehab process and what I need to be doing, what I've done, and then what I need to be doing now. And I guess I was just thinking of places where I can put myself in those positions that I can expose myself to obviously nothing's going to replicate a game, but where I can expose myself to those stresses to equip me to, return to the field.
Because you're doing everything in isolation at the moment, right? You want to start to integrate it all. Obviously, the game itself is the total integration because that's the end goal, right? But you don't have the luxury of, call up, 20, 22 other players and just, or 23, can't even do the math, 25 other players and all right, let's get a team together or something like that and do a scrimmage. You can't do that. So you have to be realistic with what you can do. Same thing with like any form of competition, track or field or something like that is, say for the swimmers, is maybe it's like that rehearsal of as if you're about to race, maybe doing that training, speaking to the coaches about preparation and implementing things at training. So say, for example, you go back to training and they start early. You want to get some more tackle practice in. So you might rock up 10, 15 minutes early, just do a little bit of tackle practice, maybe some rolling with someone as well, just to build up your I guess, the robustness that's required for tackling, and then the wrestling component as well, then when it comes to training, you're going to be more ready to go and integrating back into the team as well. And then the coach will actually see that. It's like, oh, Nic's actually taken a few steps forward in his development. So you're taking a lot more ownership and accountability, and it's focusing on what is within arm's reach, as you mentioned before, or what's the low-hanging fruit? How can we improve your performance or get you closer to where the goal is, or that milestone goal, which is going to lead to the big goal. So it's really just breaking it down to more bite-sized chunks. And this is something we do with a lot of the athletes here is, we'll catch up every 3 months and we'll look back at the last 3 months, what they did well, why did they do it that well, what do they wish they had hoped to achieve but didn't for whatever reason, and start putting a plan in place to help create that, because most people make too big jumps. The jumps are way too big. So it's more about developing the daily and the weekly habits in order to achieve the monthly or quarterly or yearly or half-yearly goals.
Keep talking. I'm going to find a piece on that. It's got a stoic backing.
Yeah. What else? I think as I mentioned before, it's just focusing on breaking it down into manageable chunks that have actions associated with it that are in alignment with the goal that you want to achieve. And if you're trying to do something that is potentially out of alignment, I always ask the question, is this in alignment or out of alignment with my goal of whatever that milestone may be you want to achieve in the next, 2, 3, 4 months?
This is called clarifying your intentions. By having an end in mind is no guarantee you will reach it, but by not having an end in mind is a guarantee you won't.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. That just encapsulates it.
Yeah, it's like you can talk about every movie out there as well. It's just like, in order to get from the start of the movie to the end of the movie, the hero has to go through some sort of tests or journeys throughout in order to achieve that end goal or whatever it may be to overcome and conquer. It's exactly the same thing with what we do in life. And it might be something as getting your sleep better, going to bed a little bit earlier, preparing food the night before. It might be having, Jordan Peterson talks about, make your bed in the morning, I imagine a lot of kids wouldn't do that. But it's one of those things where you can get small wins ticked off and create momentum throughout your day that you're working in alignment to achieve what you want to achieve. And it allows you to put things more in control. And then the other aspect of anything that's out of your control, you have more influence over. So you're putting say for example, it might be selections, right? If the coach is like, if you're training to get back into a squad, doing the rehab work, getting back into training, and they see the work that you're doing in your own time, but also they're seeing the fast rate of development because you're doing more work behind the scenes, because most people will never see what you do behind the scenes or never know.
One of Trent's quote is, work in the shadows so you can shine in the light.
Did I really say that?
Yeah. That stuck with me.
I can't remember. It shows you how much shit I say. Do all the work, but you do all the work behind the scenes, then the coach will be so surprised about you, which will put you more likely in a chance to be selected. So because everything that's out of your control is all based on probability. Are you increasing your probability to get selected or to be moved up a squad if it's like a swimming context, or are you doing things that are reducing your probability? So are you working in alignment or out of alignment? Are you increasing your probability or reducing your probability of being selected and moved up? That's probably the biggest thing. Is it's all an odds game at the end of the day. The odds are, if you do things that are going to benefit you in your development of where you want to go, the more likely you will move up. That's pretty much it. Obviously, we can talk about genetics and all that stuff and all that, in another time. But in terms of what you are, in terms of like a meat vessel we are, and what you can do, there's a lot of things we can control to increase our probability. And a lot of it is the work that no one will ever see. So yeah, work in the shadows so you shine in the light. Actually, I should write that down. That's a good one.
I got it from you.
I know, but
yeah,
I can't remember if I got it from somewhere else. anyways, if anyone knows, please let us know. Yeah, this has been a really long one. This has been really good. Anything you want to wrap up with?
No, not really. I think what we last spoke about is a good way to end. And yeah, no, not really. I don't. No.
Moral of the story: work in the shadows, shine in the light. That's basically the whole podcast.
Pretty much. And if you have support, they're there. Use them.
Yeah, and there's always going to be support around. It's basically asking, and that person may not know the answer, but they may know someone else who has the answer. So they know what they don't. They know what they don't know, but they may know someone who knows that specifically as well. So until next time, thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share the podcast around. It's great to have Nic back in the flesh. All the best for you out in Greece and Norway. Norway will be interesting because it'll be nice and cold now as well.
Nice and cold, and I'll see you in another year.
Yeah, we'll do the old the annual catch up as well. So all the best for that, and I'll see everyone else on the next one. You have just listened to the Inner Athlete podcast. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the release of weekly episodes. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get great tips on all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.